Right, we're going to start putting some more of this gearbox together. I'm going to start by putting bearings in the little end supports for your gear drum, shifter drum should I say. And the number for these bearings is 9837. So I've got it sat on a block to support it. You get your bearing right inside up. Sitting in a bit jywog that, so a bit shifty about. The usual, I'll see it, let the pressure off, let it centralise itself, and then just press it down till it stops. And you can see in there there's the groove for the snap ring. Bearing seated all the way in. Right, so that's that one done. So grab the other, sit that on its support. Just grab the other bearing. Same thing, right inside up. You always want to go in cockeyed these. You can't just sit flush. Centralise it again. Right, and that's your bearings in. Right, so I'll just knock you off for now and we'll move and get on to the next bit. Right, we're going to put the snap ring into these bearings. And then once I've got the snap ring in place, I'll put a bit of lube in there. So just check that that's in properly. Get the other one. Right, and what I'll do is I'll just drop a little bit of lube into this bearing and then give it a spin. And then the same with this one. A bit over the top with that one. Right, obviously everything's been cleaned. Drop your pins back in the end of the shifter drum. Right there in. And what we'll do next is we'll get all this the detent arm. Actually, I'll just need to put a little bit of lube in there. Right, I knocked you off then because for some reason I had it in my head that there was a washer missing off this lot, but I've just checked my parts and there's no washer. I don't know what made me think there was. Right, I'll just grab a spanner. Oh, wrong side, dumbass. Right, that bolt is to be torqued up to 12 Newton meters, but as I haven't got my torque wrench out at the minute, I'll just get on to the next bit. I'll come back to that. Right, what we'll do next is we'll get this bearing on the end of the shifter drum. I'll just get a bit of excess lube off there. Push that on. Now on this end there's a spiral locking ring, and they're quite fiddly. Once you get one end locked in the groove, it's just a case of pushing it down and round. And making sure it's clipped in place properly. And that's your end, can't come off then. Right, so that's that one on. And what I'll do is I'll just knock it off for a second. I'll get my torque wrench and we'll torque the bolt down on there, and then we'll fit that end on. Back in a sec. Right, I've got my torque wrench set up. Now this bolt just torques up to 12 Newton meters. And that's it. So once that's on, just give it a dab of lube. And I've got a little lube in the where the detent pin runs. Right, once you've done that, you need to push the detent pin up and start. Sure you still see this. this can be quite awkward, but just persevere with it. Get your bearing on. I should maybe lube this up after I put it on. Let's get rid of some of this off my fingers. And we'll try again. Right, I'm just going to get a screwdriver, it'll just be a second. Right, I'm retracting the detent pin using a screwdriver as a lever, and that's it. Easy as pie. Normally I can do that with my hands, but because I lubed it up it just got a bit slippy. But that's your shifter drum back together. Putting bolts in. Right, what I'll do is I'll knock it off, we'll get set up at the box and I'll put the shifter arms and everything back in. Right, we're going to put our shifter forks back in. Now, you check these, you measure. Sure you can see this. Measure the ends of your forks to make sure they haven't worn down, and then also if you put your fork on the fork shaft and put a square up, you can check that they're not bent. Well, I've done all the checks obviously, so I'll lube this fork up and we'll get them all put in. Now the one with the pin that's sort of centred, that's your one that goes into the counter shaft gear. And then I'll just grab one of the others, lube it up. And then this one, which goes into the main shaft gear at the back, if I can get it in, you can see that won't go in like that. Basically, it's pretty obvious that that's not the right place for that gear, for that shifter arm. So, whip it round, you put the pin on the inside and it's this bit here to the outside towards the trap door, and this goes in your other. See how they all starts to line up. So I'll just grab the other one. basically what I'm showing you there is they can only go, they will fit in if you put them in the wrong place, but realistically they can only go in one way. If you get them in wrong, now it'll line up. Right, so this one slips into place. And basically that's all your shifter arms in and everything's sort of in line. Right, what we shall do next is we'll lube up the shaft and feed that through. The shaft goes through this hole here, through the trap door, and then into the housing of the gearbox, and as it goes through, just slip your shifter forks into position and just push it through, just steady, and into the hole at the other end. Right, and now I'll just wipe some oil off my fingers. Once they're in, just make sure that everything can slide freely, including your gears. I mean, the dogs are catching on these, so they're not going to go far, but they can all move with the gear nice and freely. Right, next step is you want your blue Loctite, and you've got I'll just get the top off of this. You've got your big grub screw. Now that goes into the back of the gearbox here, pushes against this shaft. And the way I always set them up, I'll just get some blue Loctite on this. I think I am running out of blue Loctite. I'm going to have to buy some more. Right, just put the grub screw in and just start it in, and then when you get so far in, what I tend to do is I get me straight edge of my little engineering square, and I just put it across the face on there, and then I turn the grub screw. I like to have it so that it's flush, just touches the bar, and then obviously the Loctite will set up and lock the grub screw in place, and then when you've got your clutch release cover on, it sits over there anyways, and it just stops the shaft moving. Right. Can't remember what I was going to do. Right, just wipe off the excess Loctite off the outer face. Right, next thing we'll do is we'll get the shifter drum sat in place, and once that's in place we'll get the the shifter pawl, get the spring back on and get it put over onto the drum, and then we'll put the centering screw through. Right, so I'll just knock it off for now, I'll come back in a sec.